What would you do if tomorrow you woke up and realized that every decision you had ever made, every choice, every hesitation, every moment of silence had never truly been yours? Not entirely, at least. Imagine stepping out of bed, looking in the mirror, and seeing not just your face, but the weight of unseen forces sculpting it. The way you dress, the way you speak, the things you avoid, the dreams you abandoned before they could even form, each of them shaped, not by desire but by something older, something quieter, something that lives beneath consciousness itself. Fear, not the primal kind that makes your heart race when you hear footsteps behind you in a dark alley. Number. This fear is softer, more insidious. The kind that whispers when you stand at the edge of something unknown. The kind that makes you hesitate before speaking your mind, before taking a risk, before allowing yourself to be seen fully, unapologetically. It is the silent architect of identity. Consider this. How many things in your life do you claim as your own, when in truth, they are merely echoes of avoidance? The job you settled for not because it fulfilled you, but because the alternative carried too much uncertainty. The relationships you maintained not out of passion, but out of a fear of loneliness. The mask you wear not because it reflects who you are, but because you fear what would happen if it were removed. Fear does not only prevent action, it creates an identity in its absence. It is the void where authenticity should be. And here is the paradox. The stronger your fear, the more real it feels. The more it defines you, the more you believe it is you. But what if it isn't? What if the person you call yourself is nothing more than a story written by fear, a series of compromises, a collection of safe choices, a life sculpted not by what you pursued, but by what you avoided? And if that is true, then who are you really? Sit with that question. Feel its weight. Because once you see fear for what it is, you can never unsee it. But that is only the beginning. To understand how fear has shaped you, your mind, your choices, your very existence, we must go deeper into the psychology of control, into the philosophies that warned us of this long before we had the language to articulate it. Because if fear is the sculptor of identity, then who or what is the hand that guides it? Fear is an invisible master. It does not scream its orders, it whispers them. And the more obedient we become, the less we recognize its presence. But where does this force come from? And why does it have such a grip on the human psyche? Carl Jung believed that the human mind is not merely a product of personal experience, but a vast, inherited landscape of instincts, myths, and unconscious patterns. He called it the collective unconscious reservoir of fears and desires passed down through generations, shaping us before we even have words to resist. Buried within this unconscious are ancient fears. The fear of exclusion, because isolation once meant death. The fear of failure, because long ago it meant starvation. The fear of standing out, because history has not been kind to those who challenge the norm. These fears, once necessary for survival, now operate in the background of modern life, distorting reality, dictating who we become. But fear is not just a biological remnant. It is also a psychological prison that Friedrich Nietzsche warned against with ruthless clarity. To Nietzsche, most people do not live. They merely exist. They follow scripts written for them by society, tradition, and most dangerously by their own fears. He called them members of the herd, individuals who trade authenticity for security, who let fear define the boundaries of their world. But this fear, Nietzsche argued, is a lie. It is not protection. It is enslavement. It keeps people small. It makes them cling to comfort, avoid risk, and surrender their power to external forces. And the tragedy? Most never realize they are doing it. Arthur Schopenhauer took an even darker view. To him, fear was not just an obstacle to greatness. It was proof of life's fundamental suffering. He argued that human beings are ruled by will, an insatiable, blind force that drives all action. But this will does not seek happiness. It seeks only to continue, to persist, to survive. And fear is its tool. It keeps the individual chasing illusions of safety, never realizing that true peace is impossible in a world where suffering is inevitable. And then there was Jean-Paul Sartre, who shattered the entire foundation of identity with one terrifying revelation. We are condemned to be free. To Sartre, fear is not just about survival, it is about responsibility. The moment we recognize that we are not bound by fate, that no divine force is shaping our identity for us, we are struck with a paralyzing realization. We alone must define ourselves, and that is terrifying. It is far easier to believe that our fears are rational, that they exist for a reason, that they protect us. Because if we admit that they are just delusions, just habits of the mind, then we are left with something far more unsettling: the burden of choice. The burden of shaping our own identity, without excuse, without justification, without anyone to blame. And so, we retreat. We surrender to our conditioning. We allow fear to sculpt us, piece by piece, until we no longer recognize the difference between who we are and who we were too afraid to become. But there are consequences to this surrender, and they are more devastating than you can imagine. Fear is a sculptor, but it does not create, it erases. It does not add, it subtracts. Every time you hesitate, every time you shrink, every time you choose safety over truth, a part of you disappears. Not in an instant, not all at once, but gradually, imperceptibly, until one day you look in the mirror and see nothing at all. And that is the great tragedy. Because fear does not just shape your identity, it steals it. You might think you are making choices, but if fear is guiding them, then whose life are you really living? Consider the sunk cost fallacy, the cognitive bias that makes people stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, and belief systems they have long since outgrown. Why? Because they fear loss more than they desire freedom. They tell themselves, I've come too far to turn back, as if the time they have wasted somehow justifies wasting more. Or take the illusion of control, the psychological trick that convinces people that by staying in their comfort zones, they are keeping themselves safe. But what is safety, if not another word for stagnation? What is comfort, if not another word for decay? Fear does not merely influence individuals, it infects entire societies. Look at history. Look at the eras where fear ruled, where conformity was law, where questioning the status quo meant exile, imprisonment, or worse. Look at the thinkers who were silenced, the revolutions that never happened, the ideas that never saw the light of day, not because they lacked merit, but because they were met with fear. And now look at yourself. Where has fear kept you small? Where has it made you agree when you wanted to argue, obey when you wanted to resist, stay silent when you wanted to scream? The most insidious thing about fear is that it doesn't feel like fear. It feels like logic, like responsibility, like prudence. It tells you that now is not the time, that you are not ready, that you are not good enough. And if you listen long enough, it does not need to stop you, because you will stop yourself. And so you live a life of almost saying what you mean, almost doing what you love, almost becoming who you were meant to be. But here is the terrifying part. You do not realize it is happening. You do not see the years slip by. You do not notice how the walls around you tighten, because fear is patient. It does not need to break you. It only needs to keep you waiting, waiting for the right moment, waiting for permission, waiting for a sign that never comes. But what if none of it is real? What if fear is not a barrier, but a door? And what if everything you have ever wanted, everything you have ever been afraid to claim is waiting on the other side? Because it is, and it always has been. But to reach it, you must be willing to do something most people never do. You must be willing to rebel. Rebellion is not loud. It does not always wear the face of revolution. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it happens in the smallest of moments, the moment you decide that fear will no longer write your story. Because that is the truth, isn't it? Fear has dictated your choices for so long that it has convinced you that it is part of you, that it is protecting you, that it is keeping you from making mistakes. But fear is a liar. And if you want to break free, You must be willing to commit the most radical act of all. You must refuse to believe in it. Sounds impossible? It isn't. History is full of those who did it, those who saw fear for what it was and stepped past it. Look at Socrates, who refused to silence his mind even when it cost him his life. Look at Viktor Frankl, who discovered in the depths of a concentration camp that even when everything is taken from you, you still have one freedom left: the power to choose your response. Look at Nietzsche, who rejected the morality of fear and called for a new kind of human, one who creates his own values instead of inheriting them. Look at your own life, the moments where you fought against fear and won, the times you spoke up, walked away, took a risk, and for one shining instant, felt what it was like to be truly alive. That feeling, that is what fear has stolen from you, and you can take it back. But how? First, you must realize that fear is not something to be defeated. It is something to be understood. It is not an enemy, it is a signal. It shows you where the limits of your identity have been drawn. And if you are brave enough, it shows you exactly where to push past them. Second, you must stop waiting. Fear thrives on waiting. It keeps you in a perpetual state of someday. But someday is a lie. It is an illusion designed to keep you obedient. The truth is, you will never feel ready. You will never feel prepared. And that is why you must move before you feel ready, before you feel certain, before fear has the chance to stop you. And third, you must make fear your compass. Here's a secret most people never learn. The thing you fear the most is often the thing you must do. If it terrifies you to speak, you must speak. If it terrifies you to leave, you must leave. If it terrifies you to be seen, to take up space, to exist without apology, then that is your path. Because the only way to escape the prison of fear is to walk straight through it. And when you do, you will realize something profound. There was never anything there. No monster, no consequence, no invisible force waiting to strike you down. There was only you, and the version of yourself that fear was keeping you from becoming. So now, the question is, who will you choose to be? Because the final truth, the ultimate revelation, is waiting. But you must be ready to hear it. You've crossed the threshold. You've seen fear for what it truly is. You've rebelled against its lies, walked through its walls, and faced it head on. But there is one final realization you must come to. A truth so powerful, it will transform everything you've ever known about yourself and the world around you. This truth? Fear is not the enemy. It is the gatekeeper. What if fear has never been a force designed to break you, but rather to make you? What if all along it was simply guarding the very thing you've been searching for, your truest, most authentic self? Consider this. Every moment of fear you've experienced, every hesitation, every retreat, has been a moment of potential. Not wasted potential, but untapped potential. Fear didn't block you from greatness. It guided you toward it. Each time you chose to ignore it, to stay within the bounds of what you knew, you forfeited your own expansion. But when you decide to rebel against it, when you choose to step into the unknown, you unlock something far more profound than courage. You unlock growth. Fear is the silent teacher that pushes you to question who you are, who you could be, and what you are capable of. It is the force that strips away your illusions, exposing the raw truth of your potential. But here's the paradox. You can't access that potential until you've learned to move past fear. Until you've learned that the only thing standing between you and your highest self is a moment of discomfort. This is the truth that Sartre grasped so clearly. The moment you accept your freedom, the moment you take responsibility for your choices, you will realize that fear no longer holds power over you. Because freedom is not about the absence of fear. It is about realizing that you are the one who chooses how to respond to it. And in this response, you begin to rewrite the narrative of your life. No longer is your identity formed by what you fear, by what you avoid. It is formed by what you embrace. What would you be capable of if you were no longer afraid of rejection? What would you create if you could silence the voice of self-doubt that has held you back for so long? What would you say if you knew there were no consequences for speaking your truth? The moment you understand that fear is not your adversary, but your guide, your life will never be the same. You will see every opportunity as a chance to expand, every challenge as a doorway to a deeper understanding of who you truly are. You will live a life of choice rather than chance, a life where fear no longer molds you into something small, but propels you into something far greater than you ever imagined. Because the ultimate truth is this: you are not what you fear. You are not the product of your anxieties or your hesitations. You are the infinite potential that lies just beyond them. And once you see that, once you step into it, you will find that fear no longer has the power to define you. It has only ever been a reflection of the person you were meant to become. So, ask yourself, what would you do if you no longer feared who you might become? Step into that truth. It's waiting for you.